That intro shot wasn't CGI, we actually did that with practical effects. You can see we've got a larger key in the background and we've got our very real house key up here in the foreground. So today we're showing you how we built our giant key based on this regular size key. Pretty cool stuff. In today's video, we're gonna see if we can supersize a common household object, a standard house key. Guys, this is a house key. It opens, well, nothing anymore. It used to open some house locks. House locks were changed recently, and now this key opens a bunch of lock parts that have been thrown away. However, I do still have the key, and I thought that it would be really fun to see if we can blow this up to something super size. So I'm going to try and embiggen this key. I'm going to make it giant. It's going to be approximately 13 times the length, 13 times the width, and 13 times the depth, which is giving us about 2,200 times the volume, which is pretty nuts. So little key, and then hopefully we'll have a big key that looks almost exactly like this one. We've got some 1/2-inch MDF board here. That's medium density fiber board. It's basically wood dust that's been glued together in boards. It's very smooth, it's quite durable, and I think it's just gonna be the perfect project for us because it doesn't have a tendency to bend or warp the same way plywood does, because it is uniform density and strength all the way through. So we're gonna start taking some measurements. What I started by doing was measuring the thickness of the key, and that's 1.96 millimeters. And then I measured that compared to the boards. These are both 1/2-inch boards, and when I pressed them together and put them in the calipers, I got 1 inch, because we've got 2 of them. And that's the scale we're gonna be using, is the 1.96 millimeters up to 1 inch. That means every measurement I take on the key in millimeters, I need to multiply by 0.5102, and that will give me the number of inches that the whole key will be. So, is that strange? Yes. Is it the way I would recommend doing to anyone else? Maybe not, but I think it's what's gonna work best for me. So now Americans and non-Americans can all be equally mad at me for not using the right system of measurement. It's perfect. The whole thing is that 2 millimeters thick, and then it gets ground down from one side, and it has channels that go through on both sides. So I'm gonna make 2 halves of the key, a top half and a bottom half. And I'm gonna try and just cut all of the pieces that I need for each side and sort of combine them together to get one key that has all of the grooves and spots in the right place. I'm gonna draw out the key onto one board and the whole profile of it. Then I'm gonna cut that profile out, and that will include both sides, even though each one will be individual. But I'm gonna cut that profile out, then I can trace that onto a second one. That way I can cut that one out exactly matching the same, and then I'll start taking down the different parts that go to one piece or the other. Okay, we've got the general outline of the key drawn out here. I'm really liking how this is looking. Next step, we're gonna be using bandsaw, scroll saw, and a drill to just cut all of this out. Once we've got a nice clean cutout, we're gonna put it down on the other board and trace it out. And again, we're doing it in 2 pieces because the 2 different sides of the key are gonna have like down here, these are gonna be different on both sides. So the top's gonna be the same on both, down here is gonna be different, and in fact, the actual teeth portion of it is probably going to be a separate piece because it's a little offset from both of those. It'll probably end up just getting glued onto the side. Let's get sawing. Okay, we've got side 1 cut and filed and smoothed down to about where we want it right now. So we're gonna trace out a second one of the exact same thing, cut that out, get them to match, and then we're gonna start being able to add in like the different parts of the variation of the 2 different sides of the key. So now we're just tracing. We've got both sides of the key cut out, shaped, and I had them clamped together and sanded them and used a file to try and really get all these edges to line up really nicely. And then I've gone ahead and I've marked all of the different places where I need to cut out channels. So on this key, for example, I gotta cut out all of this channel here, and then on this side, I'm actually gonna remove all of this. I'm gonna keep the teeth. Those are gonna be a third layer. So these two layers will be together, but this piece with the actual teeth is more right in the middle. So I'm gonna cut that off separately, and then that will get glued on slightly lower down. So now I'm just gonna start cutting some pieces out. I'm gonna be using the table saw, I'm gonna be using the jigsaw. The table saw I'm partly gonna use because some of these I need to cut at angles, and so we're gonna have the blade twisted at an angle. That'll give us some of the bevels and matching the angles that are on the real key. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to clean up all of the edges everywhere I was cutting with the saw. I'm just gonna go over those with a file, try and make sure they're nice and straight. Then I'm gonna glue these two pieces of the keys together. Just sandwich it using wood glue, clamp it for just a few minutes. That should be enough to give it a nice strong hold. Once that's glued in place, I'll also take this piece, the teeth of the key, I'll glue that on. Before I do that, I might go through and see if there's any spots that need a quick sanding or anything like that, but for the most part, that should be the step. After I've got all of these three pieces glued together, I'm gonna take some Bondo, some auto body filler, and I'm just gonna go through and I'm gonna fill in all of the gaps. Things like this where I had to cut it a little strange just to get this piece out. Things like this where I have a very steep, sharp 90-degree angle, where on the actual key, the way it was ground down gives it sort of a curve. I'm gonna just fill that in with Bondo and sort of sculpt it into that curved shape. Where the teeth meet the body, there's actually gonna have to be some filling there as well. I cut it at an angle with the jigsaw, but the angle is not quite what I need it to be. It's actually a little too steep. So once this is glued in place, I'll then be able to take Bondo and fill that in and then just sort of scrape it at an angle, giving me the correct contour. All right, guys, due to some weird timing and unforeseen circumstances, it's actually been like 8 months. We're back to the key though. It's had a little bit of wear added to it, some scratch marks in some places, but we do want to finish this off, and so today we're going to be adding a key ring. We're not building this out of like intense steel that's thick and spring-like like a real key ring. It's made of garden hose and some aluminum rubber-coated wire. So it doesn't have the form. It's not gonna hold its shape well enough to use it as a real key ring. So what we're gonna have to do is actually glue the hose down so it can't move anywhere. But that means we have to put it onto the key first. So we're gonna put it on the key, and then we're going to glue it, and then after we've glued it, we're going to paint it. Oof. Can't forget your keys, you know. This way I never lose them. Don't want to get locked out of the house. Guys, that's not all. You know, we've always got more for you to see. Click that box up at the top to check out our most recent video, and we'll see you in the next one. Talk to you then.